Hello students, this is Dr. Day and today we are going to talk about endocrine system. Okay, so first and foremost, endocrine versus exocrine. When anybody talks to you about endocrine glands, make sure you understand that these are ductless glands. They do not have any ducts. So what do they produce? So the endocrine glands produce hormones, and these hormones are carried via the bloodstream because the glands do not have any ducts. Okay, the hormones, they will enter interstitial fluid and then into bloodstream, and the next and the most important thing is that they will act on target tissues. They're very specific on which gland or which tissue that it acts on. We'll see that more in detail. Exocrine glands, they will secrete substances to the external environment of the gland. So outside the gland, look at this. These are these cells, and via a duct or a pipe, you are secreting the substance outside the gland. So they do have a duct. Their exocrine glands are glands with a duct. And the substances then reach body surfaces, whether it is to the outside of the body, like the sweat glands secrete sweat that's outside the body, or they will secrete something like the enzymes in the internal body surface. So substances reach body surfaces that are on the outside, external or internal environment. Got it? Okay, so moving on. Again, we see another term that you should be familiar with, paracrine and autocrine. Now, always remember, in science, it is easy because the same term, if it is repeated, it means the same thing. Auto means what? Self, right? So autocrine are local hormones. So these will act on same cell or the same cell type that secretes the hormone. Good example. Okay, we'll talk about good example. Paracrine are local hormones secreted by cells that act on surrounding cells, different cells. Para means different. Auto means what? Same. So here, these will secrete hormones that act on the same cell. Paracrine will act on surrounding or different cells. All right? Okay. So how do hormones, most of the hormones that act on distant tissues, so how is it possible that here I am producing the endocrine glands are producing hormones carried by the blood to distant organs, and you know the blood passes through many organs. Okay, so how does the hormone know that it has to act on that particular target cell? Well, the particular target cell will have receptors. So without receptors, they are not going to bind. So say example, this cell has this receptor and it will bind to this particular hormone. Do you see? It cannot bind, this receptor, for example, cannot bind to this receptor. You see that? So here, hormones have no effect on other cells. Why? If they do not have receptors. This is going to play an important role when we'll talk about diabetes, specifically diabetes 2. Here are the major endocrine glands. So we are going to look at hypothalamus. Now you'll say, wait a minute, hypothalamus is the part of the brain. I agree, absolutely. We'll talk about that later on. Pituitary gland, pineal gland, come down, thyroid gland, and in the thyroid gland, on the posterior side, you will see parathyroid gland, then of course the thymus, adrenal gland, pancreas, to some extent kidney, ovary in the female, and testes in the male. Okay, so these are the glands we'll be covering this unit. Hormones regulate many processes. Now you need to understand that hormone, a lot of people get confused between hormone and enzyme. Easy way of remembering. The enzyme can control one particular chemical reaction. Okay, so conversion of A to B. This is where an enzyme will play. It will only change the speed of the reaction. Hormone will change the entire metabolism. That is what you need to understand. It will change metabolism for you. What is metabolism? Metabolism, remember, there are many chemical processes. So my students find it really funny when I explain it like this. I'll say hormone is the big daddy and it has many enzymes working for it. Okay, if that's what helps. So here, what does hormone regulate? Well, chemical reactions, many chemical reactions. Transport of substances, water balance, electrolyte balance, blood pressure, reproduction, development, growth. Of course, of which the most important function is metabolism. Not that others are not important. All right, this is important. Hormone chemistry. There are the two types of hormones, steroid hormone and non-steroid hormone. Now, you've heard about steroids, you've heard about lipids. So basically, these steroid hormones are lipid-based, meaning what? Not soluble in water. They're derived from cholesterol. The non-steroid hormones are mostly proteins, glycoproteins, smaller peptides, amines, all right? So basically, the non-steroid hormones, the key role is, of course, played by the proteins, all right? So proteins, amines, peptides, and glycoproteins. Glycoproteins are sugar in combination attached to the protein. All right, so here's an example of a protein, peptide hormone. So here is parathyroid, and you're noticing what? So protein is made up of what? It's a chain of amino acids. So here is the chain of amino acid. Another one, oxytocin, is a good example of a peptide hormone. Prostaglandin is a very unique hormone. Why it is a unique hormone? Because first and foremost, it was thought that it is only produced by the prostate. That's why prostaglandin. So prostate gland. So that's why they named it prostaglandin. But then they found that prostaglandin is synthesized in every cell of the body. So when you talk about prostaglandin as hormone-like, remember hormones was produced by a particular gland. What am I saying? Prostaglandin is produced by almost every cell of the body. All right. So here they are like hormones, not exactly hormones, will act like chemical messengers, but they do not move to other sites right within the cell. So what does it make it? It makes it what? Autocrine. Got it? So here, what is the structure? It's a type of fatty acid. All right. And what are the functions? Of course, it promotes inflammation. The first chapter that we had talked about, and we had talked about the first unit, we had talked about a lot about immunity, right? We had talked about histamines, we had talked about basophils, and we talked about in connection inflammation. So now you understand that prostaglandin can promote what? Inflammation, cause constriction or dilation of vascular smooth muscle cells. When is this important? Especially this is important during what? Bleeding. Yes? Or for the distribution of blood to the different organs. We talked about that too, right? Cause aggregation or disaggregation of platelets. When do you want aggregation? When there's blood clotting, right? Now, sensitize spinal neurons to pain. You can look at that. Constrict, we've talked already about constriction of smooth muscles. Inflammatory mediation, we've talked about that. Calcium movement, hormone regulation. So notice that prostaglandin regulates hormones and controls cell growth. Of course, most important function that I would be worried about is, of course, inflammation, and of course, for the constriction and dilation of vascular smooth muscles. All right, how do hormones work? I think we've taught that, said this. They either produce something or stop produce something, take in less ions, break down, build something, secrete a substance. What did I say? That in short, specific hormones act on hormones regulate what? Metabolic processes. How do specific hormones act on specific cell type? Because we already said that A cell must have a what? It must have a receptor. Okay, so basically same thing is repeated, what I've already explained. So all right, so here we'll stop here and we'll talk about steroid and non-steroid hormone in our next presentation. And I thank you for listening to me. If there are questions or concerns, please reach out to me. Thank you. Have a great day.